Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. There's a lot of people here today. Really excited to have Michelle here, and I'm excited to ask my first question because it's the thing that I want to know the most. I know you think that I want to hear about her story, how she got to Chief Administrative Officer of Children's Hospital, but I really want to hear first how you got the title Chief Flash Mob Officer, and then we can get to your career.
Well, you know, it's two things. Whenever I get a microphone, I threaten people that I'm going to start singing. So if I break out into song, it's my karaoke side. Chief Flash Mob Officer. Wow. So I've been at Children's for 12 years. And if you've ever been to one of our campuses, you get a sense of lightness, even at a very heavy kind of moment in a lot of parents' lives. So what we try to do is we try to bring a little bit of fun to the kids, right? Because that's part of the healing environment. So every October, Halloween, many of our kiddos can't leave, so we bring Halloween to them. So, and you can Google this, don't do it right now. It's all out there for the world to see. But we do a flash mob for them on Halloween. And if you've been to, and we do this in both our Colorado Springs campus and the one out at Anschutz, but in the one at Anschutz, if you are in the atrium and you look up, it's glass. So they're like glass walls almost that you can look down. And the first year we did Thriller, and it was epic. It was unbelievable. And so since then, we've kind of upped our game a bit. So I'm the one who picks a song that helps with the choreography, the theater in me. And then the families have gotten wind of this, so they know it's not quite a flash mob anymore. We don't surprise them. So they start gathering, and then before you know it, you have doctors and nurses and board members, and we even invite a couple of community members to come in and dance, and we flash mob the heck out of it. And a little fun story. This last year, Russell Wilson was quarterback Broncos. His wife is an amazing artist. But her lyrics aren't quite for kids, right? So we always have to check our lyrics. We have to check. So at the last minute, she said, "Hey, I'll choreograph it for you guys, and you can do one of my songs." I won't tell you the song, but suffice it to say, it had some. Yeah, it's great but it was not kid friendly. So we do Baby Shark in there. We'll do Ghostbusters, but. We've had the Bronco cheerleaders come in and choreograph it for us, and they come. Some of the Broncos have come, so it is a thing, and you all are invited. Just let me know. I'll send you my email, and we'll send you the dance in advance, so you got to come and you got to dance. That's a big thing. So, yeah, it's a flash mob.
I feel like there's a real lack of flash mobs on the CMU campus. That's what I learned so far.
You can be that officer. I think I can teach you.
I'm listening. I learn quickly.
Okay,
so,
let's do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So here's how I want to set this up. And if you've been to the speaker series, this is what I like to do. I like to start with what our guest does now, and then we have a lot of students in the room. We have students who are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life, what they're going to study, how they make things happen in their career. And so I want to talk about what you're doing now, and then I want to go back to where it started, and
20 years ago.
Tell us the story of how you got from beginning to where you're at now.
Ooh. Like I said, I'm only 40, so it shouldn't take that long. Thank you for the laugh. Much older. So start way back. Start like in Ignacio.
Well, first you got to tell us about what you're doing now.
See, I'm not very good at following directions. What I'm doing now. So right now, my role at Children's is, as Dr. Perry said, I'm the Chief Administrative Officer, not a very exciting title, Corporate Secretary, a little more exciting, Chief Flash Mob Officer, way more exciting. So I'm one of the, so let me tell you a couple things about Children's. We're a 1.9, roughly $2 billion organization, so we're pretty big. We've got roughly 10 to 15,000 employees, volunteers, doctors. Our doctors are not employed by us. They're employed by the School of Medicine there at CU, but we call them ours. And I don't know if there's some in the audience that are at our local place, so you're ours too. And so that role encompasses, a friend of mine explained it, one of my roles is to be pretty much the consigliere to the CEO. So I'm kind of her Jiminy Cricket on her shoulder. Do this, don't do this. Run away from that. Let me make that decision. Run to your office. So she doesn't do that. But I am her advisor. So within that group, I'm responsible for the lawyers. So we've got a group of lawyers. Risk management. I told you they're not very exciting. So risk management. So if unfortunately someone gets injured, either through medicine or on our property, my team takes care of that. And then compliance, and I don't know if you guys know this, but healthcare is one of the most highly regulated entities and industries pretty much in the world. I think we're second to nuclear medicine, to nuclear energy, so we're very highly regulated. So my team follows all of that. And then the kind of fun part is I get cybersecurity. So cybersecurity reports to me, and I saw some smiles in there, and it scares the out of me daily. It's interesting what you can see happening from the cyber world and how data is being there's the threat actors are trying to get at it. And at an organization like Children's, it's interesting because it's not only the patient's data, but it's a patient plus the family. So you got mom, dad, or aunt, uncle, or grandma, grandpa. It's a lot of data that you can get. So I do that on a daily basis, is really just clear the deck for my team to be brilliant. I've got an amazing team that works for me, absolutely amazing. So it's that pretty much on a daily basis. Isn't that fun?
Sounds fun.
No, it does not.
Oh, flash mobs sound fun.
Flash mob sound way more fun.
Okay.
Yep.
But the combination is fun.
It's off the hook fun.
So you're in a key leadership role at one of the biggest hospitals in the Western United States.
Yep.
So when you were in college, and I want to start before that, but did you see yourself being in a leadership role? When you went to law school, did you see yourself being in a leadership role, or did you want to be an attorney? Did you want to litigate?
No. I actually wanted to be a doctor. So I'll take it back a little bit. So growing up in Ignacio, I say in a small town, and maybe it'll resonate with some folks, it tends to have invisible walls around the borders, right? In the sense of that's your home, that's your people, there's a comfort there. And to leave that environment, it's very difficult, right? And so I'm one of 11 kids, number 10 of the 11, the favorite, of course. Ask my brothers and sisters, they will not agree with that.
My youngest can attest to that.
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah, 10, right? The only one that was more favorite than me was my younger brother, but just by a smidge. So I grew up wanting to, so I'm mixing a couple of the answers here. I wanted to be a doctor for as long as I could remember. And I wanted to deliver babies, so I wanted to be an obstetrician. And so I was that nerdy kid that one year for Christmas, I asked for a flip chart. Yeah, that one. And so I took the flip chart and I took like the mason jar lids and the Tupperware lids, and I took from conception to meiosis, did all the cells from that. And that was like the coolest thing I could think of because I needed to know that because I wanted to be a doctor. So I always wanted to be a doctor. I had an amazing mom, which we can get into later as well, that it was all about community and giving back. And there's leadership in that that's not formal leadership, but it's leadership. And so I saw that, and I saw, to create a project, to lead a project, to do something for your community. So I always knew I wanted to do things like that. I wanted to be a doctor, wanted to do all of those. And so law didn't actually come into my life until I went to college. And if there's any physicians in the room, I got through organic chem. That's kind of badass. I got through organic chem, passed it, did really well. And then I went to my advisor and I was like, I don't know if I like this. Like, it's going to take a long time. I think I want to have a family. It just wasn't fun to me. And so that was such a grave pivot in my life because he said, you know what, you don't have to. He's like, what about, if you want to be a professional, how about law? And I was like, law? What do they do? And so he's like, well, you like theater, because I was kind of a theater kid. He's like, this is like theater and getting paid for it. And I was like, works for me. So I know, not quite. Is there another lawyer in the room? I know, it's okay. We work harder than that, I promise. But I was a litigator too, so it was a bit of that. But so I say I took a pivot. I took a left, hung a Louie for some of the snowboarders in here. And my son's a snowboarder, so he teaches me that language. And I pivoted that way. But the cool thing about it is I came back to medicine in healthcare. So when I went to law school, I took some classes for healthcare law, so I made my way back in. Long-winded. Does that answer it?
Yeah, no, that's
Good.
perfect. But you left out the most important part. You pivoted in your undergraduate degree to an economics degree. And I was wondering if you could talk about...
Who has an economics degree? Would you, perhaps? Professor? Yes, yeah.
A couple people in here,
Yeah.
a couple econ students. So you did econ and political science, which I love both.
And a minor in accounting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went all
Okay,
in.
Representing two
All in.
business fields.
But can I say why?
Yeah, that's
It
why
might
I'm
be-
asking.
It might be a little why? Well, let me tell you the why the accounting first. The accounting had okay, this is horrible to say, but I'm admitting it. They had some really good-looking instructors. Not even gonna lie to you. Dr. Toko, Dr. Matthews, I still remember them. Don't take a class for that. Stop it.
I have tenure, but I still think I'm going to be quiet on this.
Please don't. You should. But I did econ and poli-sci because that wonderful advisor said, you know what, you're gonna learn to think in poli-sci, right? And the judgment components with that. The economic side is gonna help because I knew I was gonna want to get into some type of leadership role. And you're gonna need to know the numbers, you're gonna need to know forecasting, you're gonna need to know all those different pieces. And have I used any of that? Probably, maybe. I can definitely read a spreadsheet, and I can tell you, in our investment committees what our, when we're forecasting and what our different investment policies are. So it did actually work to feed into this role. Economics was my favorite. How's that? Does that make you feel better?
That's the answer I was
Better
looking
answer.
for.
There we
Thank
go.
you. No, I did something similar. I studied economics and philosophy. So I had a double major, and for precisely the same reason, the quantitative and then the thinking skills.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have students come to my office and they say, man, I think I want to go to law school, but I also want to study business, what should I major in? I say, well, economics.
Absolutely.
Is best in the business school, political science, over in the social sciences. Did your econ and political science degree choice have anything to do with the potential for law school?
Well, when we made the pivot, I knew that I was going to be going to law school.
So you already made the decision.
Well, we fit the major to the decision for law. So it was kind of a group package. And since I went to a Catholic school, we had theology and philosophy already. So those were infused in each of our programs, basically. So I had to take those kind of courses. So the poli-sci was, and actually that has come to help if you've, looking at some of the other roles that I've served. I worked for Mayor Hickenlooper and have helped with he and Senator Bennett and John Suthers. I mean, it's on both sides of the row. Those thoughts and that thought process has helped, absolutely.
In your current position in healthcare, did any of your economics classes help with some of the thought processes and logic that you have to deal with?
Would you like me to say yes?
I would.
Okay.
But you don't have to. I want you to be honest.
Absolutely, it has helped, right? So it has, though. I mean, when we are, especially right now, there's many regulations around transparency and transparency to price it's price transparency and costs. So you bet. I mean, everything is about the L, all of that. And so, and it's whatever you have on either axis, it absolutely has helped. And I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here, and it's the best major you told me ever.
It is, but I do want you to be honest.
Yeah, but honestly, it has helped, and I wouldn't joke about that. The poli-sci hasn't helped for healthcare-ish, other than I also We've got an advocacy group. Remember I said we're highly regulated? So right now we're in a legislative session, and so I took I think it was a 45-minute break between the amazing class. I don't know if any of the students are here. I love seeing you guys. And the bills that we've had to review through the lens of healthcare. There's probably 4 or 5 in my inbox. Yeah, so it does help.
So when you graduated with your law degree, what brought you to your first job? Because this is a big step, and I think students, when they graduate, they're expecting an employer to, give them a hug and welcome them in. And I remember when I graduated, I thought, oh wow, now I have to prove that I have any worth to society,
Right.
and so I have to take these skills that I learned and try and illustrate that somebody should pay me for them. Yeah. And that's a big step. How did you go about that first step?
To the first job?
For the first job.
Do you mind if I back up and talk a little bit about just the process for college? And
Please.
Just real quickly, just because for the students in here and those moments of should you want to go into an advanced degree. And I think this exemplifies the need for mentors at different stages, right? So small town girl was blessed to get accepted to, and I was a good Catholic girl. I'll leave it there. But grew up very Catholic. So the schools I was looking at and was blessed to get scholarships to were Notre Dame, Boston College, and Rockhurst College. I didn't have anyone to tell me, pick this one over this one over this one. So I picked the one that was closest to home, right? I knew my mom and dad, we didn't have money to fly. Very poor family growing up, so we'd have to drive anywhere. So I had to pick the one that was closest enough that I could drive there. So that was Rockhurst in Kansas City, Missouri. So first point of mentoring, right? So and the number of people in the community and business members, I would venture to say, definitely here in Grand Junction as well, that are willing to pick up the phone and talk you through a decision are massive. I mean, just got to pick that phone up. The second point, going to law school, so graduated from college, so I didn't have to look for a job then, but I worked all through college, right? I mean, my friends that were a little wealthier would go to, South Padre Island or here or there. I was in Kinko's. I was working in Kinko's. So I'm a copy girl, so, I could make some copies. Now, I did mess up some church, the church flyers. That was not a good moment to have a pastor screaming at you for that. He didn't scream, but he made you feel bad enough. But it was so I didn't have to look for a job after that. But law school, I didn't know that for any professional school after any graduate school, they usually have a class, right, that's taught. I didn't know that. So I bought the Princeton Review. It was a book about this thick. I think I still have it at home, and I just read it every day. Just read it. And took my own tests. It had all the sample. And it wasn't until we sat in the actual LSAT, and you may remember this moment, you're scared and you're anxious. I remember. So it's that moment. And I look around and I hear some of my classmates are talking, oh yeah, this, I wonder if it's going to be the same questions they showed us in week 2. I'm like, what? Week what? And they're like, oh, you didn't go to the review class? I'm like, dudes, you didn't see me in the review class. How could I have? Of course I wasn't in the review class. No one picked up the phone and said, where are you at? So the anxiety, you're already anxious there, right? But the anxiety now going, oh, crap. They had a review class, and I had a book. So blissfully, did well, right? But mentor moment, second, when you're going to that next step, ask someone who's been through it, right? Let them help feed that information to you. So then the third part, graduated from, so got to the LSAT and then I promise I'll get to your answer. I promise I will. So get the LSAT back, get some decent scores, and I knew I wanted to come home. So how many law schools did I apply to? 1. No mentor, right? No mentor said top, middle, sure stuff. I didn't know. I knew I wanted to come home. And I didn't even know that DU had a law school. Sorry for any DU grads in the room. I just knew I wanted to go to the only law school that was in the state of Colorado, CU. And so I applied to it. And I didn't then it's other friends I'm talking to, and they're like, how many did you apply to? I'm like, 1. How many did you apply to? 7. I'm like, what? Number 1, where'd you get that money? Number 2, are you crazy? Why did you do that? So then I heard why. So it was, again, another mentor moment of ask the people that have gone through it. They will talk to you, I guarantee. So now the job. So I get through law school, graduated, and so at that time, interestingly, that was a time when it was before the oil bust in Colorado. So they were hiring lawyers like like DoorDash was hiring drivers. Like it was like 10, 15 in each class. And I remember when I went to go interview for some of these, and so you would get your resumes and you put them in the boxes. And some of the things, only, again, remember I'm only 40, but if I was older than that, this is some of the questions they would have asked me. Things like when I'd go into an interview, are you gonna have babies? Like, are you supposed to ask me that? Are you gonna have kids? Because we're not sure if we want, if you're gonna have kids, this is a big job. We're not sure if you should be one of them, right? So then I'm Latina, and our superpower, kind of like Samson, is our hair. So I was told, don't you wear those hoop earrings, you better pull that hair back or cut it off because you're never gonna get a job. You don't fit then they told me I had to wear these horrendous shirts and that had the big ruffles. Do you guys remember those, right? Yeah. Big bows up here. Wore one. But I was blessed, lucky, hard work to get a job at one of the 17th Street law firms, right? So those are the ones, if you're in Denver, they're the big ones, right? I think that it was a mixture of grades, of a little bit of perseverance, a little bit of attitude, shocking, as you can tell, to some of those questions that would come my way. Respect, but a little bit of attitude with, what should or should not be asked in some of them. And then, and I just a lot of hard work. I worked all through law school, bartended, you name it, I was doing jobs because that's how I had to pay for school while some of my cohorts were just studying. I wasn't top of the class. I wasn't bottom of the class. I was probably top third-ish. And I'd venture to say if you go back and look at my class, I'm probably doing pretty okay compared to the ones at the very top. But I think it was just a lot of hard work and figuring out where that niche was. See, I told you I'd answer it eventually.
That was a great answer. I had a similar experience with my undergraduate. I'm a first-generation college student, and when you talk about that jump from the undergraduate to the next level, their students or other people at the university who have parents that are, they work for big corporations or they have their own business or they're their 5th, 6th, 7th generation college, they have an advantage.
Absolutely.
I didn't get any of that advice that you needed from a mentor, and I had to figure it out on my own.
Right.
And that's a first generation college obstacle that is very common, I think.
Yeah.
But you overcame it.
And I would say same. I mean, the experience exactly. And I'm kind of like first gen. My mom, 8th grade education. Well, my dad was military when he came out. He was a truck driver, got into an accident, and then was disabled, so really couldn't work after that. My mom, 8th grade education, had her first baby at 16. And then at 35, she said, geez, I better show these kids what an education can do for them. So she took her 15 years driving back and forth to Fort Lewis College with her best friend, Betty Jo. I call them the original Thelma and Louise. And after 15 years, she got her college degree. And that was, I think, my junior year in high school. So I'm almost first gen. I'm glad that she broke it, and she was the first gen. And but I'm the only one blessed of my 11 siblings who have a college degree, let alone an advanced. And it is. You have no one to. She had this much experience, right? She didn't have, like you said, the connections in corporate world or any of those business lines. It just wasn't there. You've got to find it yourself.
Yeah. So you got your first job, and
Got
what
it.
was your role in your first job?
My role was as an associate. That's what we were called.
Those are the
But
ones that work a lot of hours, right?
a lot of hours. And I used to joke because all we'd stay at the time. Corday, where's my girl? She took me to the library, and I was like, "Do they still have books here? Like, are there still books?" Because our libraries were books, right? And our law libraries were books. So I would sit there and research 12 hours a day and write memos. And I think that the seat that I sat in had an imprint on my behind because I was there so long. So that's what I did. And that's what you did at that point for first, second, third year law. As you went up the ladder of the years, you started getting more and more responsibility. But it was a huge firm. So I researched. That's what I did.
So you started this job, and you maybe had an idea of what you wanted to do for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an analogy that I like to give.
Yeah.
Do you remember The Price is Right? I think it's
Oh
still
my
a show.
gosh. I love it.
Do you remember Plinko?
I love Plinko.
Oh, yes.
Love it.
So
Is
for
there
those
one
of you
here?
that don't
We'd
know
play
what
it.
Plinko is, because you guys, a lot of people in the room weren't awesome enough to be around in the 80s, okay? So it's this game, there's this disc and all these little metal bars, and you drop the disc, and you don't know where at the bottom that the Plinko is going to end up.
Yeah.
And it's my analogy for how a lot of people's lives go, is it's like Plinko. And I'm a control freak. I have planned out every aspect of everything in my life,
Yeah.
and I can't stand it when things deviate from that, but I find that most people's lives and careers are just blowing with the wind, and they end up different places. So my question for you is, I want to hear about your career, what your next job was, and key
Yeah.
points, but as you narrate that, what was Plinko, right? What was randomness?
Yeah.
What was a random event that came up? And what was you having this distinctive plan to be exactly a certain person or at a certain place?
Oh, I love that. That's the children's job. So that's the most important Plinko moment. So through that, and I'll try to go quickly because there's a lot in there. So that first job at that big old law firm where they paid you a whole lot of money to just sit there and research, then the oil bust happened. And so we saw them starting to lay off loads of people, right? So they started with the most expensive ones. That was the third-year associates. So we saw that coming. And so we, first-year associates, said, we got to get out of here, and quick. And so the best places, or the more secure places to get jobs were in the government. So I wanted to be, remember that theater background I talked about a little bit? So I wanted to be a trial lawyer at that point. I said, let's go do some trials. So this first Plinko moment was, it wasn't a great one, but the oil bust. So we knew that that's a pivot moment, or a Plinko moment, a bar. So one of those little sticky things, and now I got to take my Plinko a different way. And so I applied to the city attorney's office, the DA's office, the AG's, got interviews, and I said, I got to take the first job that gives it to me because I got to pay these bills, right? And so it ended up, and what's so interesting is that you never know in those moments how they're going to help you years later, right? Years later. And so never question it. Like, the universe is talking to you. So this first Plinko moment was for the city and county of Denver. Remember that. So city and county of Denver, prosecutor there, got more trials that I could ever. So I took that job, Plinko first, and did prosecution. So I'm in the court all the time. I'm jury trials to the court, putting Portia from Merchant of Venice to work. And so then, do you want me to keep going?
Yes.
Keep rolling? Okay.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling. And I might forget some because it's been only 20 years. Then where did I go from there? Oh, then I decided I don't want to do criminal stuff anymore. I want to do the big civil stuff. I want to get in the big courtroom. And that's like the U.S. District Court. So think the real big ones, right? 2 steps away from Supreme Court. So I go to another part of the city attorney's office. Remember city attorney's office, and I'm a litigator there, right? So getting in the court and trying our cases, and then after that, my favorite boss left. So here's another point of leadership, right? So I'm like, I don't know that I want to work for anyone else. So she left, and I knew the person coming in was not going to be as awesome as she was. So I took a Plinko moment, and I said, maybe this is my opportunity to go try something different. So I went to the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Now that should scare the bejeebers out of everyone because we get to carry badges, like real big gold badges. And we get to, I got my economics degree. And I remember what we do is that we'd go in and we were the investigating unit. You know what that means? That means we're doing raids. That was super cool. Super scary too, because we'd walk into a business and we'd literally say with our badges, put everything down, walk away from your desk. And the look of fear on people's face, it either motivated you or it made you feel really bad. I had a little of both, sadly. But it was disheartening because it was, so I did that for a hot minute. And then the woman, remember the leader, so leadership. And if you see any of the statistics, people tend to leave their jobs not because of money, not because of benefits. They leave their jobs because of leaders, right? The people that are leading them. So this same woman went to Denver Health. At the time, it was Denver General. And she called me. She says, hey, come over. Let's build this. And I was like, heck, I'm on my way. So left SEC and went over there. And a Plinko moment. So totally, that's probably one of the first ones. The one I did not anticipate at all. But super cool because it got me deep into healthcare, right? So I'm back with the doctors. I think I'm a doctor, kind of, sort of, a little bit. They invite me into surgery, so yeah, I'm really a doctor. You know, I get to see patients. I get to do rounds with them. They don't let me touch them, but I get to be in the room with them. And so I was there for a number of years. I loved it. Loved it. And if anyone knows, at that time, it was called Denver General, and it was turned into Denver Health. And it was led by some amazing people. And then the only reason I left there is there was no advancement, right? The woman that I worked for, she wasn't going anywhere. So I decided to, then another Plinko moment. So I guess I have a lot of Plinkos, a lot of them.
Trusting the universe.
Trusting the universe. So then this is age here. So I went out of my industry at this time. So US West, right? Everyone remember that? Ma Bells. So US West was looking for someone, and it looked super cool. And it gave me more money. I have family. I've got 2 kids by this point. My husband is a chef. They don't make a ton of money, but there is a very fulfilling job, but they don't make a ton. So I was kind of like the main breadwinner. So made the shift over to US West, loved it, until leader moment again. Quest comes in. And I don't know if any of the business folks in the room, remember Joe Naccio, right? Woo, run away from that one. Prison, right? Run away from that one. So they come in, and a number of us had severance agreements. And so they don't do a lot of preloaded severance agreements anymore, but it was a change in ownership. And so this was a change in ownership. I was pregnant at the time with my oops baby number 3. That's a whole other story.
Plinko,
exactly. Total Plinko. And so they offered me a job, but I'm like, I'm take some time off, be with this kiddo, and I don't want to work for that guy who's ultimately going to be, like, in my gut, I knew this is not going to go well. Like the head of the legal department, his name was Drake Tempest. I don't know that I'd want to work for someone's name as Drake Tempest, right? Just didn't feel right. So left, stayed home for a little bit, and then I jumped back in a few months later because it was time. So from there, so another Plinko moment, graphic packaging. So if anyone knows Coors Tech or the Coors subsidiaries, so you see it, right? So I was in this government role. Then once I come back start working in-house, so for corporations, which I love, because I think that you can actually do some super cool things on the inside and helping lead and manage. So I was at Coors Tech, and here's a couple of fun things with graphic packaging. Does anyone in here eat banquet chicken? Do you remember that, banquet chicken, right? You eat French fries, right, from McDonald's. The packaging from the French fries from McDonald's and the packaging from the banquet chicken that you can microwave, we did it, graphic packaging. How's that, right? So I was doing things like NDAs, so they wouldn't come and take the tech from that, and so it was kind of fun. I did that for a bit, and then healthcare called again, and I went to Plinko, go to Centura Health. So Centura Health was before it. I know it's broken up since, but I went there, and that was my first. That was a director role. it wasn't my first executive role yet as a vice president. So if you define executive as vice president and above, Centura, I went there the first time, and I did labor negotiations. I directed all their employee relations items, and then I got a phone call from Michael Bennett, and John Hickenlooper had just been elected as mayor, and Michael Bennett called and he said, "Hey, I've heard of you. You're on a list. We'd like you to come work for the mayor. We promise it's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to help run the city attorney's office. Remember? City attorney back here comes back to the front. We know you've got experience with them. We know you've been on the the criminal side and the civil side. We want you to come and run it." So that was the first big leadership role. I had done little ones all along, but that one was 100 lawyers, 100 support staff, more issues, the DIA, you name it, anything with the city of Denver. And so that was probably the most beneficial Planko moment. And what's interesting about that is they convinced all of us to take pay cuts. So I took a 30% pay cut to go to that job. The city attorney at the time, a gentleman by the name of Cole Finnegan, probably took 100% pay cut. I mean, it was, if you could say that.
It was that fun, that job.
It was
huh?
that fun, yeah, exactly. But it's one of those, it was to the side, it was high up in responsibility and what I could learn. And the money kind of it mattered, but you could see the potential, right? So what ultimately happened from that was Michael Bennett then goes on to be, if you know Colorado, kind of, and this is more Denver politics, he went on to be the superintendent for Denver Public Schools. So then my boss goes into the chief of staff role, and now I'm acting city attorney. So it takes me up one more level, right? Planko, not, totally didn't expect it. But the cool thing about that is then I stayed there for 3 or so years, went back to Centura. I could go back in as a vice president at this point. So that's my first jump into executive role. Have the breadth, have a little more experience. And then as I was at Centura for a while, and then I started getting the calls from the headhunters. And at that time, Denver Health, so remember Denver Health, I was there for a bit. And then Children's called saying they needed a general counsel. And the person who recommended me for the general counsel role at Children's, Cole Finnegan. So another note to my students is networking. And we're not talking networking just to say network. It's true relationship building. Because he was on the board of Children's, he knew there was a recruitment coming, and he said, "Don't go after any person but this woman," because she ran that office. I might have had the title for a while, but she ran the office. And so each of those pieces to it. So that's Children's. Did I hit it?
Yeah, that was great.
It was very long.
So it sounds like the last 3 positions, if I counted right, you had some serious leadership responsibility.
Yep.
So what, if you can try and describe this, was your leadership style? How do you lead by example? How do you lead?
Yeah, humor first. My team will tell you that we have fun. So I would say, and it's evolved a little bit, right? So I've always sought to be an empowering type of leader versus a powerful leader, because I think they're different, right? I really think they're different. I think you get power by the position, but you become a leader when you empower. And it sounds semantics, but it's so true. So it's interesting you asked that, because a couple years back, we did a little exercise at Children's, and we were told to ask our teams, how would you describe your leader? And so, it was they were wonderful. Some of that. So it's definitely lead by example. Sometimes it's a do as I say, because I tend to have a really sailor's mouth. I haven't dropped any bombs here, which I normally would have by this point. Side note is that on my review, and I'm sorry this is being recorded, but it's the truth. On my review, it's one year it said, "Please try to cuss less." I try.
That's what my review said.
Exactly, right? So anyway, side note. I'm very passionate, right? So my team will know where I'm at all times. I have evolved. At the beginning, I felt, a friend of mine said, Michelle, you go to the mat too much, right? So if you think wrestling, obviously, and you want to just take them, you want to slam them to the mat. I would go to the mat all the time. Like it was, you're going to do this, or this is going to happen. We're going to play my way, or blah, blah, blah. Not effective. Not effective at all. It was taking that power component of it and not the empowering component. So hopefully my team now would say, she's got that behind her. At the same time, so I'm very empowering. I listen. Like my team is way smarter than me. Seriously, way smarter than me. My job is to clear the deck, literally clear the deck so they can do brilliant stuff. And so it's communicative, fun. We're serious when we have to be serious, but we have a healthy dose of fun because life is too short not to. And we deal with some heavy stuff. And so one of my statements is you got to laugh to keep from crying. So I try to keep them laughing.
That's great. So we want to do questions here in a second, but I have a couple more questions myself.
Yeah.
If I have time, Robin. 5 minutes of me, or 10 for the whole thing, or 10 for me?
15 minutes total.
There we go. See?
Yeah.
I always ask for more time, just like my students on the test. So
I'll negotiate. I'm a good negotiator. Do you guys want more time on the test? Shall we talk about this?
So if we could narrow this down, you've given a lot of good career advice, but I want to ask you about life advice. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. So I can see, get a mentor, let the universe guide. Don't be afraid to move on to new challenges.
Absolutely.
So concurrent with that, you have this life, right, that you're living. I mean, we work to live. Some of us live to work. We also work to live.
Absolutely.
So what life advice do you have for students that runs concurrently with that career advice?
I think I recently did, the Denver Business Journal brought a bunch of us mentor types in a room, and the one thing I told, that was a speed mentoring kind of thing. And what I told those women, I'll tell you guys, don't play small, play big. Like play big in everything you do. And one of the things that I use as an example of that is, I don't know if you know the poet Marianne Williamson, but she's got a poem called Our Deepest Fear. And I want you all to get that, or I will grab it and I'll email it to you. But there's a line in there, and I won't say it perfectly. I should have memorized it. But and this applies to no matter what you do in life, whether it's work, whether it's play, whether it's your relationships, whether it's giving back to the community. And there's a line in there where she says, your playing small does not serve the world. By playing big, you allow others, you let your light shine, and you allow others to shine as well. So the fact that you are sitting here in college, in this moment, you're a role model, and you have no idea who you're a role model for. It might be the little boy or girl down the street, it might be a family member, it might be someone that you just meet in the grocery store that they look at you and they see a CMU sweatshirt on. And so you've got to play big at every given moment. So that would be probably, in addition to all the other stuff we said, play big. And then going back to the fun piece of it is, take some healthy risks, is what I'd say. And it's hard for the person who's over risk management to say that, but take some healthy risks. I think that whether it's an adventure, career, just take them. Take them.
That's awesome advice.
Yeah.
I have 2 random questions for you that are small, and then I want you guys to ask some questions because I'm sure you have some. You gave a TED Talk. Can you tell us about your TED Talk?
I gave a TED Talk. I gave a TED Talk on urgency. And it was my, and it's, if you Google it, you'll find it. It's so funny because it's on urgency as a virtue. And so it's a play on patience as a virtue, but I'm making the case for urgency. And not only urgency in yourself, and it's not fast or reckless or any of that stuff, but it's being urgent and wanting to accomplish and be and give back to the world. And what's funny about it is TED Talks have gone from like 20 minutes to 15 minutes to 12 minutes. And they said, all right, since you're talking urgent, you get 9 minutes. So so it's quick. It's a quick one. So yeah, it was urgency as a virtue. It's kind of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you do a lot of, you volunteer on boards, you do a lot of volunteer work. Are there any specific causes that you want to talk about, anything that's close to your heart or that you think is important that you spend your time on outside of work?
Well, there's 3 things I try to concentrate my time on. Kids and education, thus the pieces with Metro and some of the other work that I've done. Women, so just women in general, just empowering and keeping safe. And then Latinos. So that's why I am. So there's a lot of us. So I really concentrate on some of on those efforts as well. Internationally, I do some work, like you mentioned, in Papua New Guinea. So that's it's really empowering women. It's anti-gender-based violence, anti-sorcery accusation related. So I say I've got 2 jobs, my one during the daytime and then my one at night, because they're 17 hours ahead of us. So I can do that work when in the middle of the night. So it's a little of everything.
That's great. Well, I'm hoping that students, community, anybody here might have any questions for our guest. And I'd be happy to walk the microphone around if we only have 2.
I am familiar with how much new associates at giant firms work. But in your current role, you have work like you get a paycheck for, and by rough count, there was like 4 million other things you do. How many hours a week or a month or however you measure it, between all of your work that you're getting paid for and all of your community things and your Papua New Guinea and all that, how many hours a week do you think you're working?
Why did you ask me that question? I am one of those weird people that, and this is not healthy, they say. I sleep maybe 3-4 hours a night, and I can do that, and I've done that since I was in college. Oh, geez. So if you take 3 hours a week, 3 hours a night, so that's what, times 7, 21 hours I'm working or giving back all that other time. So many hours. I know that, and I'm part of that, and I'm glad you asked that, is with my team, I have to moderate that, right, with expectations of them. So I might be on the weekend answering emails or doing, but I've told every one of them, I do not expect you to reply to me. This is just me getting things off the plate, out to the next component of it. Some of them listen, and some of them don't. But it's a lot of hours, many hours. And I like to mountain bike and hike and all that other fun stuff. Base jump.
So you talk about true networking is building those real relationships. How do you go about forming those real relationships?
I love that question. You know, it's, I'll use a story with it. In a few weeks, it's actually in May, the National Association of Corporate Directors. So the leadership that I've done, I'm launching into the next level, which is corporate leadership, corporate directors, which that's where you're helping manage the big companies, right? Making those big decisions. And so, and I'm blessed to be on the Vectra Advisory Committee, so thank you. But one of the things we're gonna talk about is that networking. And the story I'm gonna tell you is this. Let me tell you what networking isn't first. Networking isn't a note through LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever saying, hey, I saw you, I want to talk to you about your network. I will give anyone in the universe an hour of my time because I think that's about all the wisdom I have. It can fill a really good hour. But those aren't the ones. The ones who say, hey, let's sit down and talk about the journey, right? Let's talk about the story. Because true networking, the networking that we did years ago was relationship building, right? It was, let's go have a cup of coffee. Let's learn about each other. It's not, let's sit down and open up your, we used to say Rolodex, your phone and scroll through your contacts. So I would say, and some of it is very organic, right? It's the person that, I was talking to a young man last night who, he's got a business detailing cars. And he was telling me a story of this man's car, who he had a Ferrari that he was detailing, wonderful conversation. And the gentleman said, "Hey, I like your work ethic, kid. Here's my card. Call me whenever." The guy's name is Weldon something something. He's like big, but it came about because of a connection, right? The moral of that story is it was a connection. It wasn't someone calling up saying, "Show me your Rolodex, show me your network." And I've had those. I've had some of those where I'll sit down with someone, "Well, can you connect me to Hickenlooper or to Southers or to the president of XYZ?" No, I can't, because those are my relationships. And until we know each other and I know a bit about you and I know when I'm putting my name behind you, it's okay, then no, I'm not going to do that. Let's get to know each other a little bit more. So get to know someone, right? Don't go in for the kill right away. Don't go to the mat. Pick out, some of it can be very organic. Some of it, choose who you want to talk with. I had this wonderful young woman after a talk I gave. She stalked me on LinkedIn, like literally stalked me. She's like, "I'm going to keep calling you until we go have coffee because I want to hear your story. I want to learn your story." And we hike together. We do advice on hikes. We bike ride. Went to Country Jam together. We did networking the entire time. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
for being here. My question is that you do a lot, and how do you refill your cup?
Oh, okay.
And also, how do you balance all of the things you do with your family time? Yeah.
First, watch my TED Talk, because it'll talk about that a lot. People, I refill my cup by, this is going to sound very weird, but doing other things, right? To refill my cup from working a lot, I go and volunteer somewhere, right? It fills my cup from there. Sorry, I'm not in front of this. Or when I get really dicey at work, a little too much, my CEO will say, "Take a hike," and she means it, like get on a mountain. And that's how I don't meditate, but I meditate through my feet. So I'll do meetings on mountaintops, or on a bike ride. It's those pieces that regenerate me. My kids are older, so they don't want to be with me very much. Go see your parents. Call them today. They need you. So I don't. They're more planned times. Interesting thing with that though is as I was going through this different Planko patchwork, my kids were little, and it was tough. And it came to a point where I had to be comfortable being out of balance versus trying to make the balance. Like sometimes, I wouldn't miss a soccer game. That was a no-go to me. Will not miss a soccer game. Now, unfortunately, I was doing calls on the soccer field, which is not cool, especially when my daughter was scoring goals, right? But you make those decisions so that I'm going to be out of balance, but I'm going to prioritize this now. Next week, I'm prioritizing this. And in the end, it's kind of all going to work out. Yeah. You're welcome.
Well, I hate to disappoint the rest of you, but we are out of time. And so I wanted to thank our guest. If you could give her a round of applause for such an amazing talk. And thank you all so much for coming. There's stuff that you can eat in the back, and you can come say hi.
Thank
Thanks.
you all so much. Go Mavs.